If you actually stayed up to watch the Ravens lose, you deserve a round of applause. Not because you're a Steelers fan enjoying a bit of AFC North schadenfreude, though that's part of it, but because it takes a special kind of dedication to commit to a game you have no stake in, just to watch a division rival crash and burn. That's passion. That's spite. That's football. And if you were one of the many who watched every snap and still managed to get up the next day for work, you're built different. But let's leave Baltimore to stew in their own mess. We've got more pressing things to unpack right here in Pittsburgh. Because while the rest of the country might be talking about Rodgers like he's just coasting through this part of his career, we're watching every down, every throw, every decision, and trying to figure out what the hell is really going on with this Steelers offense. Look, we've had our share of quarterback Mondays. The offseason was full of them, but after how this schedule has played out, it makes way more sense to shift that breakdown to Tuesday. Especially when Rodgers is at the center of the conversation, because even when the numbers aren't screaming disaster, the eye test is throwing all kinds of red flags. And yeah, the opener was great. The energy, the execution, the downfield looks, the improvisation, it looked like a preview of what this team could be. But then came the Patriots, then came the weird half measures, the quick throws, the confused looks from receivers, and suddenly that opener feels like it happened in another season. Rodgers completed just over half of his passes against the Patriots. That stat alone sounds alarming, but it's not even the biggest concern. The bigger issue is how those passes were structured. There's no rhythm, no flow, and more importantly, no real fear being instilled in the opposing defense. Defenses aren't being stretched. They aren't being tested deep. They're sitting on the short routes, crashing the line, taking away the dump-offs. The Patriots knew exactly what was coming on nearly every play. And that's not on Rodgers. That's a scheme issue. That's a confidence issue. That's a coaching issue. Even with the win over New England, it was clear that the offense looked lost. Rodgers was 16 for 23, which sound efficient until you realize those completions barely cracked 130 yards. That's barely more than 5 yards per attempt. That's pedestrian. That's something you expect from a quarterback who's playing not to lose, not from one of the best to ever do it. And then there's the sack number, or the lack thereof. Not getting sacked sounds like a win, but when it's the result of getting the ball out in under 2 seconds every single time, it tells a very different story. It tells you he's not being given a chance to operate. It tells you the play design is built entirely around survival, not production. And here's where we have to pause and be real about what we're seeing. There's a difference between a quarterback making bad decisions and a quarterback being forced into impossible ones. Rodgers has thrown some bad balls over the last couple of games. No one's denying that. The pick against the Patriots was horrendous. One of the ugliest interceptions you'll see all year. It was late, it was misread, it was just bad football. But when you look at the whole body of work, you see a trend that's more troubling than a couple of mistakes. You see a quarterback who's clearly being limited by the structure around him. You see a guy who wants to push the ball, who wants to take those shots, but who knows deep down that if he holds onto the ball even half a second too long, he's going to get lit up. Let's not act like Rodgers has suddenly forgotten how to play the position. He's still got the arm talent. The strength is there. The mechanics are still sharp. He's mobile enough to escape when he needs to. But what we're seeing is a guy who's choosing self-preservation over heroics. And can you blame him? With the way this line has been performing, it's almost reckless to hang in the pocket. He knows what's coming. The internal clock is ticking faster than ever, and it's disrupting the entire offensive flow. And if you've really been watching these games closely, you've probably noticed something else. The complete disappearance of any kind of vertical threat. There's no depth to these routes. It's all flats, curls, outs, and screens. Everything is within 5 to 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. Defenses aren't being challenged. Safeties are cheating up. Linebackers are sitting comfortably in zone. There's just no respect being given to the possibility of a big play, because none of them are even being attempted. And again, that's not a Rodgers problem. That's a structural failure. That's a failure to adjust. So the big question that starts to form, and it's not just coming from fans anymore, it's bubbling beneath the surface of the locker room, is whether Rodgers needs to start asserting himself more. Not just leading by example, not just working behind the scenes, but stepping into those meetings with Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin and saying, guys, this isn't working. We got to do something different. Because when you have a quarterback of his caliber, you don't waste time hoping the protection gets better. You adapt. You evolve. You design around his strengths. You find ways to compensate for the line. And that starts with listening to the man who's actually taking the hits. And let's be honest, this isn't Rodgers being passive. This is Rodgers giving the staff the space to figure it out, to do their jobs, to find solutions. But at a certain point, that deference has to end. Because this offense isn't getting better. It's stuck. And someone has to say something. Someone with authority. Someone who actually has the clout to make people listen. And there's no one better for that role than Rodgers himself. Because right now, this team is wasting his talent. They're wasting drives. They're wasting possessions. And they're doing it all in the name of staying on schedule and protecting the football. But playing not to lose is not the same as playing to win. And Rodgers has always been about the latter. He's not a check-down artist. He's not a game manager. He's a surgeon. He's a sniper. And right now, he's being asked to play like he's holding a plastic butter knife. You watch him in the huddle, on the sideline, in post-game interviews. He hasn't lost his edge. He hasn't lost his fire. But you can see the frustration bubbling. He's biting his tongue. He's trying to be the good soldier. But that's not what this team needs right now. This team needs a spark. It needs a shake-up. It needs a voice in a room that says, let's stop playing scared. And if Rodgers doesn't step into that role, who will? Tomlin has his hands full trying to keep this locker room from boiling over. The coordinators are doubling down on safe play calling. The young guys don't have the resume to speak up. Rodgers is the only one who can walk into that facility and instantly change the temperature. And it's time he starts using that influence, not to demand chaos, but to push for clarity. To say, here's what we need. Here's how we fix it. Let's go. Because as much as this team wants to believe it can grind out wins with defense and special teams and a few lucky breaks, that's not how you win in this league anymore. You need offense. You need explosion. You need to score points. And the Steelers, as currently constructed, aren't even close to being that kind of team. Not unless they let Rodgers take control. Not unless they trust the guy they brought in to elevate this franchise. And not unless they give him the protection, literal and figurative, to operate like himself again. If you're Rodgers and you've spent your entire career being the guy who elevates everyone around him, this has to be maddening. This isn't a guy who's used to being micromanaged, to being handcuffed by scheme, to being told to color inside the lines. And yet, that's exactly what's happening right now. Every route is safe. Every call is conservative. Every drive feels like it's being played on a leash. And it's not just limiting Rodgers. It's suffocating the entire offense. What we're seeing isn't just inefficient football. It's cautious, hesitant, overly calculated football. It's football that's trying to avoid mistakes more than it's trying to win. There's a fine line between protecting your quarterback and neutering your offense. And right now, the Steelers are on the wrong side of that line. Yes, the offensive line has been bad. There's no denying that. Rodgers is getting rid of the ball faster than almost anyone in the league. Not because it's part of some brilliant tempo strategy, but because he knows the pocket won't hold. That's not play design. That's damage control. That's a quarterback saying, I don't trust what's in front of me, so I'm going to do whatever it takes to stay upright. But it's not sustainable. You can't live in this constant state of fear and expect to score enough to compete with the best teams in the AFC. And Rodgers knows that. He's watching the same film we are. He's seeing defenders sit on every short route. He's watching safeties cheat up. He's watching linebackers jump screens before the ball is even out. That's not just good defense. That's a defense that's not being challenged. That's a defense that knows exactly what's coming because nothing about this offense is unpredictable anymore. And it's not just the play calling. It's the structure. It's the rhythm. It's the identity or lack of one. We're the Steelers trying to be on offense. Are they a run-first team? Doesn't look like it. The ground game has been stuck in the mud, and the line isn't opening up anything inside. Are they a spread-it-out, quick-pass offense? Maybe in theory, but it's not working. Are they trying to be physical, creative, balanced? No one knows. Because what we're seeing right now is an offense that looks like it's afraid of its own shadow. And that's not going to cut it Not with this quarterback, not with this talent, and definitely not in this division. What's wild is that despite all of this, Rodgers still manages to flash moments of brilliance. Every now and then, you'll see a throw that reminds you exactly who he is. A tight window, a laser over the middle, a perfect sideline ball. He can still do it. The tools haven't faded. The instincts are sharp. The processing is elite. But those moments are fewer and farther between. And it's not because he's fading. It's because the offense isn't built to give him space to operate. You give Rodgers time, and he'll still carve you up. But right now, this scheme is giving him no time, no freedom, and no vertical options. It's a recipe for frustration, for inefficiency, and for wasted potential. And here's the part that stings. This didn't have to be the case. The Steelers knew what they were getting when they brought Rodgers in. They knew he wasn't just some plug-and-play veteran. They knew he'd need the right system, the right support, the right flexibility to do what he does best. But instead of building around him, they've tried to fit him into a system that doesn't suit his strengths. A system that looks like it was designed to protect a backup, not empower a future Hall of Famer. You can almost sense Rodgers' restraint. You can see it in the press conferences, the sideline shots, the body language. He's playing nice. He's being professional. He's trusting the process. But deep down, you know he's itching to push this thing in a new direction. And the longer this continues, the more it's going to wear on him. Because Rodgers didn't come to Pittsburgh to play it safe. He came to compete. He came to chase another ring. And what's happening right now isn't taking him anywhere near that goal. This isn't about blame. It's not about throwing coaches under the bus or demanding dramatic changes. It's about urgency. It's about recognizing that you don't get many chances with a quarterback like this. You don't get to waste half a season waiting for things to magically fix themselves. You either make the adjustment now, or you risk letting this entire season slip away. And that adjustment doesn't have to be complicated. It starts with communication. It starts with Rodgers using his voice, going to Arthur Smith and saying, "Look, here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I need. Let's find a way to make it work." It starts with Mike Tomlin recognizing that this offense isn't close to maximizing its potential and being open to changes, real changes. Maybe that means altering protection schemes. Maybe it means simplifying the offense. Maybe it means tailoring more of the playbook to Rodgers' preferences. Whatever it is, it can't wait. Because if they keep going down this path, they're going to waste what could have been a very special year. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Whispers have been circling the NFL world, and if the latest murmurs prove true, the Pittsburgh Steelers may have just pulled off the most shocking move in franchise history. Sources close to team insiders suggest that Tyreek Hill, the explosive wide receiver known for his game-breaking speed and uncanny ability to turn a routine play into a highlight reel moment, could be on the verge of joining the Steelers. If this materializes, it wouldn't just be a major signing. It would arguably go down as the biggest acquisition the franchise has ever made. Steelers fans have grown accustomed to steady, methodical roster building, prioritizing defense and homegrown talent. But imagine, just for a moment, what Hill's presence could mean for the Steel City offense. Known as Cheetah for a reason, Hill has repeatedly terrorized defenses across the league, leaving cornerbacks grasping at thin air while quarterbacks toss pinpoint passes his way. Pairing him with Pittsburgh's offensive weapons and a revitalized coaching staff could transform the team from perennial contenders to a legitimate Super Bowl threat overnight. While nothing is official yet, the buzz around Heinz Field has been palpable. Insiders hint at quiet meetings, late-night calls, and a front office that is suddenly buzzing with a different kind of energy. Could this be a bold gamble by the Steelers management? A statement that Pittsburgh is willing to swing for the fences in an era dominated by analytics and cautious cap management? The league certainly won't take this lightly. Rival teams are reportedly bracing for the potential seismic shift in the AFC North if Hill lands in black and gold. Of course, nothing in the NFL is ever guaranteed, and skeptics abound. Hill's contract demands, salary cap considerations, and the logistics of reshaping the offense around a player of his caliber are enormous challenges. Yet, the mere possibility has sent social media into a frenzy, with fans and pundits speculating endlessly about the pairing. Could Tyreek Hill really become the symbol of Pittsburgh's new era? Only time will tell, but for now, the rumor mill has Steelers Nation buzzing like never before. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.